Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 242 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week by the former Junior-Middleweight IBF World Champion. It is of course Mr. Carlos Molina. Carlos, thanks for doing this show with me. How are you, my friend?
Hey, what's up, Joey? I am good. It's always a pleasure to be on the show.
Always a pleasure speaking with you, my friend. Like I say, we've done a few interviews in the past over the years, and this one is going to probably be more of a chat, really, than an interview. So obviously, you know, you're known for your boxing, but nowadays you've got one foot in the promotional side of the sport. You've put on a few shows now. How many shows you put on now, by the way, Carlos? Obviously, all being in Mexico.
I have 6 shows now, and this will be my 7th this weekend.
Okay, excellent. So again, you know, as boxing fans, not just in Mexico, not just in the UK, not just in the States, we've been starved of sport in action, really. Not just boxing. Every single sport. It's been a terrible time, I should say, to be a fan at home with nothing to watch. But you know, we've been desperate to see the return of boxing. I think there was one show in Nicaragua that was, you know, it was an okay show. No real names on the show or anything like that. But this is going to be one of the first cards, if not the first card, where we're going to, you know, have names on the show that we've heard of, namely yourself. You're not just promoting the show, you're also fighting on it. Tell me about the card itself, Carlos.
Yes, we have 5 fights, and I'm going to be fighting a 10-round against Michi Munoz. And the co-main event, we had an exciting fight also with Pájaro Davila against Nestor Garcia, the Chispas. And we have another 2 8-round fights. Undefeated prospect. He's only 18 years old, and he's been professional since the age of 16. And we got another prospect that's making his pro debut also.
Okay, excellent. So it's a 5-fight card. I know, you know, because I've been speaking to you and stuff like that through pretty much most of the planning of this event. So I know, you know, more than people that are listening right now. But just bring them up to speed on how difficult it's actually been to stage an event in Mexico. I know you've been through lots and lots of stress trying to get it on. There's been lots and lots of hoops you've had to jump through. How difficult has it been to get this particular event to actually take place, Carlos?
It's been very difficult because I thought about this like as soon as like this coronavirus hit, and I was trying to figure out how I could do a show, and then I decided a closed door event with no crowd, and we'll televise it and be able to see it everywhere. And initially, I got the permissions here in my hometown of Pátzcuaro, Michoacán, and then they got infected here, and it wasn't even in the town. It was like in the outskirts of it, and they took the permissions away because the government was I guess, breathing down their neck about it. Like, why are you going to stage an event when this virus is going on? So I had to go and figure out another venue, and I hurried up, and that's what I did.
So you initially wanted it to take place in one venue. You've had to move the venue. It's just one time you've had to move it though, right?
Well, yeah, just one, but it was hard to get a different venue because everybody's dealing with the same thing. But I was explaining to them, everybody loved the idea about, you know, we're going to do a testing. We're going to have no crowd. We're going to have just the boxers, the TV production crew, and the boxing commission. That's it. Nobody else. And the boxers get to go in the event with just one cornerman, and that's what we're doing, the least amount of people in the event.
And obviously, you mentioned there about the testing and stuff like that. We know in the UFC they've had a few events now. It's been good for fight fans in general. How's the testing going to work? Explain to me the process of how everyone's going to be safe in that venue, in terms of not being able to catch this virus.
Yes, we're going to test anybody that's close to the ring, from the boxers to the team, to anybody that's close to the ring. The only one that's not going to be tested, obviously, people are like the production. They're gonna go in there and set up before. It's like the TV crew. They're gonna be separated apart. Everybody's gonna have their masks and everything. But the fighters and everybody else are going to be in the ring. The announcer, everything else like that is going to get tested. Make sure that that the coronavirus is not in there.
Okay.
In the venue at all.
Excellent. And so you mentioned that you initially wanted the fight to take place in your hometown, pretty much, in Michoacan. Is it still in Michoacan, the location here?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. And we talked about the fight card. Obviously, there was, I think, unsurety at the start when you had this idea to put this show on of which platform it was going to be on. Just explain to our listeners, where can they see this fight? From a UK standpoint, from a worldwide standpoint, where can you view this action?
Well, that's the cool thing about it, because this is worldwide. We can all get it as long as you have a Facebook. It's going to be on Facebook, and we're going to have a great production team that I got, a professional team that I got from Mexico City, and they're going to have 5 cameras. We're going to have boxing commentators in Spanish, and it's going to be on Fight Night Live, Facebook, and King Carlos Molina. That's my page. And it's only going to be $5 US, which is, for 5 fights, I think it's a good deal. Pretty much $1 a fight. And that's the plan.
Okay, so $5 US. Obviously, the people listening over here, that is less than £5, of course. So it's Saturday night. It's this Saturday night, Carlos. What time is it? Obviously, we know that in Mexico, I believe you're 6 hours behind the UK time, so it's going to be, I'm guessing, early hours over here. But we're definitely going to stay up to watch it for sure. There's nothing else to watch on a Saturday anyway at the minute. What kind of time is it?
It's 7 Central Time.
Okay, so that's 7 your time, right?
Yeah, 7 my time.
7 your time. So that'll be 1.
They're around 1 o'clock over there by you.
1 a.m. Okay, and that's when the undercard starts, I'm guessing, of course.
Yeah, that's the first fight. The first fight goes live at 7 p.m.
Excellent.
Central Time.
And all 5 fights will be televised, shown, broadcasted.
Yes.
Excellent, man, excellent. Our sole guest, I should say, on this week's show that I'll be speaking to in a few moments' time. The sole guest on this week's show will be former junior-middleweight world champion Bronco McKart. He's actually boxed Michi Munoz, your opponent, for Saturday night. So that's interesting. That's a great coincidence on this week's show in particular. Just about your opponent, Carlos, for those that don't know, Michi Munoz is a guy that has a lot of experience, really. Tougher than, I guess, his record suggests. He's been in there with a few good fighters. Hasn't always come out with the victory, but it's a tough fight. Like I say, he's been in there with Bronco McKart. He's really mixed it. He's been in there with Carson Jones, Vanes Martirosyan. He's quite experienced.
Yes, that's why we need to get somebody like that for this event. And I actually had a hard time getting an opponent for me right now because a lot of gyms in the bigger cities here are closed. And that was kind of a difficult thing. And I couldn't get a fighter from the United States because of the traveling. So initially I also had 3 fighters from the U.S. fighting on the card. But, just for health reasons and everything, we made it a full Mexican card.
Okay, cool. And just once again, for those that need to hear it once again, on Facebook you can get it on what's the pages once again, Carlos? It's called
Fight Night Live.
Fight Night Live.
And
is that FIGHT or is it FITE?
No, it's the regular fight. FIGHT.
Fight Night Live. Okay. Or
King Carlos Molina. I mean, I'll take you to the same broadcast. Either one will work, and it's the same thing, 5 USD.
Excellent. All right, Carlos, if you want to add anything at all, if I haven't asked you anything that you want to get across at all before we let you go, before I bring in the sole guest on this week's show, if you've got anything you want to say at all, like I say, now's the time. If I've missed anything, the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I guess what I wanted to say was pretty much that, I mean, apart from, doing the only show live boxing event in the world, I feel like, people are hurting right now, like nobody could work and nothing like that. So I feel like at the same time, like these boxers were eager to fight and eager to get in the ring, just to get paid, just work, to have a job from the boxers to, even the promoter. Me, I ain't got nothing else to do. So this is what I'm doing. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to be boxing, promoting, and, from the production team, from everything, from the hotel, the food, everything. Is just, I think it's a good thing, just to get reactivated again.
Yeah, and like I say, anyone that is listening, 1 a.m. UK time, obviously in the States, depending on where you are, if you're on Eastern time and stuff like that, it should be a reasonable kind of time. What time is the main event expected in the ring, Carlos? What time will you be in the ring, roughly?
Maybe like 10 o'clock my time, yeah?
10 o'clock, okay. So, yeah, it could be quite a late night for us in the UK, but that is no problem with me. I'm sure a lot of die-hard boxing fans will have no problem with that whatsoever. Okay, Carlos, like I say, thanks for your time. Thanks for giving us, a piece of your time there. I know it's real busy for you, not just fight week, also promotion week and stuff like that, so I appreciate your time. And obviously, thank you as well just for putting on some kind of event for us to all watch. Like I say, we've all been starved of boxing action. Thanks for giving us this piece of time, Carlos, and we'll speak again real soon, I'm sure.
Thanks so much for taking your time interview me, and maybe one of these days I'll be back on the show again, maybe after the fight, or if you got time.
Absolutely. We certainly will do that, I'm sure, Carlos. Thank you. Just before we bring in our sole guest, I'm just going to run down the couple pieces of news that we have. There has been some boxing news this week, which has been it's been great, actually, because we haven't really had that over the last few weeks and stuff like that. But Shakur Stevenson will be boxing Felix Caraballo, a guy with a record of 13-1 with 2 draws, a Puerto Rican fighter. That one to take place at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas on June the 9th. Also on that undercard, we get to see the undefeated Italian heavyweight Guido Vianello. He's back. Also, Robeisy Ramirez, the Cuban Olympic gold medalist, and Michaela Mayer will also be on the bill there. So that's quite a good card there for June the 9th. And also, Jesse Magdaleno, he returns to action as well. His fight card, the bill that he tops, will be taking place on the 11th of June. That's a Thursday evening at the MGM Grand. Not a great undercard, to be honest, but the main event, 27-1, Magdaleno takes on YNFL Vicente, 36-4 with 2 draws. So that could be interesting. He's quite a big puncher, Vicente. Magdaleno, obviously, that one lost to Isaac Dogbay. So that is the news. I don't think there's anything else really to mention at the moment. Like I say, it's all been pretty slow. So that's everything from me. That's all the talking. The final thing to do before we wrap everything up is to bring in an in-depth interview here with the former junior-middleweight world champion, Mr. Bronco McKart. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBO junior-middleweight world champion. It is, of course, Mr. Bronco McKart. Bronco, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Bronco. It truly is. So I want to start this interview, as I do many others similar to this. What's your earliest memory, Bronco, of ever, first putting gloves on?
Just had this conversation yesterday with my dad, actually. One time I was at a fight show. My dad was coaching some amateur fighters. I was like 9 years old, and they needed a fill-in fight. And I'm over there eating popcorn, hot dogs, and my dad comes up and says, "Hey, they need a fill-in fight. You want to fight?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll fight." So we glove up, and I go in there and fight. And there's a picture of me out there somewhere, and it's in my family because I used to get teased about it all the time. I threw an uppercut and hit the guy on his knee. So that's like my earliest memory of of boxing right there.
No, that's amazing. I love asking that question because there's so many crazy responses to it.
I'm sure.
So Bronco, obviously, if we'll go into your pro career. Obviously, you made your debut on July 21st, 1992 on the undercard of Tim Witherspoon against Everett Martin in Michigan. You boxed a guy who was 1-0 by the name of Bruce Anderson. Do you remember much about your debut, Bronco?
I do. I mean, like I can tell you, I remember when they called me and I was walking out of the tunnel. And so many people from my hometown showed up that night for my pro debut. When they said my name and the crowd roared, I went numb. I mean, it was almost like it was surreal, right? And then I remember getting hit at one point in the fight. I remember getting hit. I think the fight went 1 or 2 rounds. And I remember getting hit with a really good shot. And that's really all I remember about the fight. I won the fight. I stopped them, I think. But I just remember the roar of the crowd. I remember getting hit with one good punch, and that's really all I can remember about that fight. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, you're right. You stop him in just 1 round, obviously, your pro debut there.
Okay.
7 months later, I mean, by that point, you were 7-0. You boxed at the Caesars Palace in Las Vegas on the Barkley Tony undercard. You faced a fellow undefeated fighter by the name of Clayton Williams. Only a 4-round contest. Now, I believe you were winning the fight until that 4th and final round where you were down twice, and that kind of cost you the fight, really. Tell us about that night.
Well, I tell you what, for me, it was like shock being out in Vegas. I mean, I saw Bruce Willis and Demi Moore, Jack Nicklaus and Montel Williams, Magic. I mean, I've seen all these people, and I'd barely been out of Monroe at that point in my life, and I was kind of like shell shocked. But the fight itself, two things happened. One in the fight and one after the fight that really were defining moments for me. In the gym, my dad kept telling me, Bronco, you're making a bad move, and if you don't watch it, you're going to get hit with a left hook, and it's going to cost you. And in that fight, that's the exact same punch I got knocked down with twice off the move that my dad had told me about in the gym, and I made it anyways. Well, I got knocked down and lost the fight, and you can't get knocked down twice in a 4-round fight and hardly win. So I was back in the locker room, though, I remember, and I was really upset, had my head down on the table. I was crying. And I got this big pat on my back, and I looked up, and it was George Foreman.
Wow. He
said, hey, son, let me tell you something. He said, I watched your fight. He says, and you've got one thing you can't teach guys. You have a heart. He said, and someday, the way you climbed up off that floor and came back fighting, someday, son, you will be world champion. And I was like, man, I got up and said, Mr. Foreman, coming from you, that means the world to me. Thank you. Shook his hand, and then went back home and just went on a mission.
Wow. That's amazing, man. That's amazing. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I love to hear things like this. Let's fast forward to June 2nd on a Friday night in 1995 at the Foxwoods Resort in Connecticut. Obviously, you defend your WBC international title against former world champion Aaron Davis. Now, it was a split decision over 12 rounds. At that point, though, that surely must have been your biggest win. That was a great win looking back. Tell us about that one, Bronco.
Oh, absolutely. That fight was an absolute war. And the funniest thing about it, going into that fight, I don't think I'd ever been past 6 rounds in my career, and that Aaron Davis had been, world champion. But I was young, and I was hungry, and training hard. And my fight plan, come to find out, was the same as his. I said, we're going to grind it out for 6 rounds. And then from the 6th round forward, I'm going to press the pace so hard, I'm going to break him down. Well, he thought the same about me. And we just pressed that fight from 1 through 12, and it was an action-packed fight. He actually broke my eardrum in that fight. I ended up getting 11 stitches over my eye. It was a tough fight, but that was the fight right then and there. I mean, I had beat some good fighters, some good contenders, some good amateur guys like Skipper Kelp that was really good in the amateurs, and a few other guys on the way up. But when I beat Aaron Davis, that's when everybody realized I was real and that I was ready for that next step. And I knew it too after I beat Aaron Davis, and it was a great fight. It was one of the fights I think that that year in the Ring magazine made like honorable mention fight of the year. I mean, it was a war for sure.
Yeah, I watched it back the other day. It certainly was. The year 1995, you saw it out with another 2 wins, both by knockout within 2 rounds over Wendell Hall and Javier Mendez. Now we roll into 1996. March the 1st is the date at the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California. Your opponent, the former 3-time world title challenger Santos Cardona. The bout, of course, for the vacant WBO World Junior-Middleweight title. Tell us about the night your boxing dreams came true, Bronco.
Oh man, so for me that fight, my grandfather, Grandpa Smith, he was a really big supporter of mine. And he would come to my fights in Michigan all the time, and he did be at my fights and have to take 2 or 3. I can't think of the name of the pills, but it's for heart to get your blood flowing, opens your body up. I can't think of what they're called, but he would get so excited that he would have to take those pills. And I told him one day, I said, Grandpa, listen, don't come to my fights. You just stay home, and after the fights, I'll call you, and I'll let you know what went on, So he was in the hospital around the Aaron Davis fight all during that time. He got really sick, and so he didn't get to see me win the world championship. But I told him in the hospital before he passed away, I said, Grandpa, I'm gonna win that world championship for you, and I'm gonna bring that belt back. I'm going to put it on your headstone, man. You're going to see it. Even if you're not here, you're going to see it. So we bought a ringside seat for him there. He always wore a floppy hat. We had a floppy hat there. We had a picture of him there and the chair. And then I had 7 shirts made up for training. And it was a picture with me sitting on his lap with my arm around him. And it just said, "For you" underneath it. That's all it said, "for-you." I worked out in those shirts every day. And I put it on in the ring after I won the world title. I was so happy to keep that promise to him. That was the biggest. For me, there was no fight in my career that meant as much as that fight right there. And when we came back to Michigan, me and my 2 uncles, first thing we did is we went out to the gravesite, took that belt out there, laid it on his headstone, and just told some great funny times that we had, all different times that we had with him, and just spent about half hour to an hour out there just reminiscing. And I kept my promise. So that fight meant the world to me.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful, man. That really is. I mean, that obviously was a massive motivation for you. Obviously a very sad event, of course, but that definitely seemed to give you the hunger for sure. Huge.
And, like when I say my mind was so focused, when we got to California, my luggage got lost. So I'm out there every day, and I'm working out in the same clothes, take them back to my hotel, wash them, hang them out on my balcony, let them dry out, have to wear them to lounge around. I had to do this for like 3 days. And then it was Jackie, my manager, Jackie Counts, like, listen, we're gonna have to drive to LA. I'm gonna have to get you trunks and shoes. But I didn't care. I wasn't deterred. I would not lose my focus. And then, finally all my stuff made it. But it was just kind of like, that's the kind of stuff that can set you off in a whole different direction if you let it.
Absolutely, without a doubt. We've seen things like that happen many, many times. I know it, obviously goes down as your favourite night in boxing because you won the world title and all the backstory. But just looking at the fight itself for a second and your performance, I mean, you stopped this guy in 9 rounds. Santos Cardona, like I said, had boxed 3 times previously for world titles, losing to Pernell Whitaker once and 2 losses to Verno Phillips. They didn't stop him. You did. Again, this was an amazing win. The fight itself as well, to stop him like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, So I kept trying this move. I was actually circling the wrong way, but I was doing it, as a southpaw fighting a right-hander. I should have been circling to my right, but I was going to my left a lot because I was trying to time him off of his right hand, make him miss just enough, to catch him. And I finally caught him with a shot. And even Al Bernstein, I believe, asked me after the fight, thinking I started slow, but it was a plan. It was something that we saw, and it was something I wanted to do. And it worked out for me. I caught him with some clean shots. He was tough because I hit him. I mean, that one, the 8th round, I unloaded about everything I had on him, and he made it to the corner on his feet, which impressed me. But and then stopped him the next round, and it was just a great emotional moment for me.
Yes, Santos Cardona, he had 4 world title shots in 5 fights, during that time, which I'm not sure if he had the best manager in the world for keeping him getting these big fights, or the worst manager because he kept losing the fights. But it is what it is. He did
one or the other.
One or the other. He did actually go on to challenge for a world title again for the 5th time, but he lost that one as well. But all the best to him. However, Bronco, obviously your world title reign would be a short one. You lost it in your first defence just 11 weeks later against Ronald Winky Wright. It was a split decision though, over 12. Tell us about that one there.
I honestly, in my heart to this day, I thought I won that first fight with Winky Wright. I think what disturbed me the most about the decision was, in negotiations, that your side negotiates a judge that they want, their side negotiates a judge that they want, and then you bring in a neutral judge, So of the 3 judges, the judge that his side negotiated went his way. The judge that I negotiated went his way, and the neutral judge went my way. The Michigan judge went against me in that fight, which is the most disturbing thing. That it's just a pill that I've never been able to really wholly swallow. But at the end of the day, Winky Wright, class act. I have a friendship with him. We just talked about a week and a half ago, checking on him, make sure health is good and everything with his COVID and all that, and. We just talked and laughed, and a couple of years ago I went down and played golf with him in Florida. And, we stay in touch. We fought 3 times. You definitely develop a friendship and camaraderie over something like that. And he went on to have an absolutely wonderful career. And, the only bad thing about my career was that me and him were together in the same time in the same era, because I think, man, if he wasn't there, it would have been a clear path for me for a number of years, I think, just to mop out the whole junior middleweight division.
Yeah, for sure. And after that first fight with Winky Wright, obviously you bounced back with a string of wins. During those wins, you also boxed at the famous Blue Horizon in Philadelphia, one of the real historic boxing venues in the States. What was it like to box there, Bronco?
Oh, it was everything it was cracked up to be. I mean, it was just the atmosphere, the crowd, the hype, the intimacy of the building, everything about it. It was great. Being able to fight at the Blue Horizon, I got to do that a couple times in my career. I mean, it was wonderful for me. To say that you fought at the Blue Horizon, you fought at Caesar's Palace, you fought at Madison Square Garden. You've been around and fought at all the meccas. I mean, to me, I'm just a guy from a small city in Monroe, Michigan, who lived a dream almost bigger than I could have even dreamed. It was a great ride for me.
And as I said, you went on this run, this undefeated run after that loss. But during that time, that's when you obviously linked up managerially with Sugar Ray Leonard. What was that like? Obviously, him being in your corner.
I tell you what, Sugar Ray Leonard is probably one of the most honest, genuine, just real people that I've ever been around. He was a class act. I didn't know if, when I got to meet Ray Leonard, if he was going to be, one way for the camera and one way in real life. But I had nothing but love, respect, and admiration for that guy. Treated me very well. I just think the timing of everything was just wasn't, the mixture and the timing just wasn't right at that time. But we had a couple fights together. I won those fights. He actually, I will say this, he had actually negotiated a fight, and the deal was done with Fernando Vargas. And then during that period, Dino Duva had went into rehab. And when he went into rehab, Shelly Finkel stepped in and killed that fight. He didn't want the fight. But Ray, that was the fight that I wanted. Ray Leonard went to work. Him and his people got the fight for me. We had the contract. We agreed upon terms and everything. And then outside things happened, and the fight never took place.
Oh, that's a great shame. But like I say, it's fantastic, for you to have been able to work with a guy like that who's made that impact in boxing. Like I mentioned again, you went on this 14-fight win streak, including 9 wins by KO before that rematch against Winky Wright came around. By this point, of course, Wright had lost the title, so when you boxed him, it was for the NABF and USBA titles. It was also an eliminator for the IBF World title. The fight took place at the Mountaineer Casino Racetrack and Resort in West Virginia. September 9th, 2000, the fight ended with a unanimous decision, though, this time. Just tell us about that one.
I'll tell you what. Of the 3 fights that we fought, that was the best fight for him personally. I mean, the 3rd fight, ended how it ended, but the 2nd fight, Winky boxed beautiful. He was sharp, man. He was sharper. He was the sharpest he had been of the 3 fights that we had. He fought really well. I mean, he had a great night that night. He just outboxed me. There's nothing I can't even say anything about it. I'm not going to try to make anything except that he boxed wonderful that night and he outboxed me.
Yeah. And, again, you bounce back with another 3 wins, going the distance in each fight, though, including a win over eventual world title challenger Michael Lerma before having that third fight with Winky Wright, the trilogy fight, almost 2 years to the day since the 2nd fight, September the 7th at the Rose Garden in Portland, Oregon, obviously for Wright's IBF Junior-Middleweight world title this time. Again, I rewatched it the other day. A strange kind of ending, really. There was a number of points deducted on your side. Just talk us through that night. Obviously, it seemed to be quite a frustrating one in the end.
Oh, it was. I mean, I hit right low with some low blows. Some of those blows, I don't think were as low as, I don't think they were like point deduction low blows. Maybe 1 or 2 of them was. I would personally have to rewatch it again, but it was frustrating because I felt like I mean, everybody that has ever known Wright, he wears his trunks high and he's got those extra long arms. Really, when he sets his arms down, they're almost past his waistband. I mean, that's his defense. That's how he does his defense. He locks up, and I hit him with some body shots or low blows. I mean, and I think they ended up taking about 5 points from me or something crazy. Supposed to end it after 3. I was so far down at that point, it didn't even matter. I might as well just kick them. What are you gonna do? You've got 5 points taken from you. That's ball game. I mean, and he'd be probably the hardest guy in the whole boxing business in that weight class. It's not like you're gonna knock him out. I mean, we were done. So, but I guess the best memorable moment of that fight out there was getting on the elevator and George Foreman getting off. And I said, "Hey, man," he said, "Hey, Bronco, how are you?" I said, "Oh man, Mr. Foreman." He said, "Man, call me George." I said, I was just shocked even that he knew me like that. I don't know. I've been around the game. I was world champion and all that stuff, but in my heart, I was still that kid that always watched George Foreman come up, and that was a great moment. My mom was there, and I said, "Hey, would you mind taking a picture with my mom?" He said, "No, not at all." So I took a picture with my mom and one of my buddy's wives, and it was just that was probably the best thing about that weekend.
No, it's great though. He obviously remembered you right from your first loss there. All the way through.
You're right, yeah.
That's excellent, man.
Yeah.
7 months later, you were back in the ring boxing former world champion Verno Phillips in a non-title bout. A strange performance from yourself, really, that night. A unanimous loss over 10 at the Thunderbird Wild West Casino in Norman, Oklahoma. You didn't really seem yourself that night, if I have to say so, Bronco.
Well, that was right at the point when I was starting to go through divorce and personal things like that. And to be honest with you, that fight was an absolutely defining moment for me in this sense right here. When I got knocked down in I believe it was the 2nd round, I think it was. Got knocked down with a shot, and when I was down, like, it's amazing what can go through your mind in just a matter of seconds, right? I felt like life was just getting over for me before that fight even started. Going through a divorce and not sure about how your kids are going to end. All that crazy stuff that goes on in your mind. So when I was on the canvas, I kept telling myself, if I didn't want to get up, not because I was hurt, I just wanted to quit. Not boxing, just quit in life. You know what I mean? Like that was my defining moment getting off that canvas. And it wasn't defining for me as far as boxing goes. It was defining for me as a man and as a human being, and as learning how to step forward and continue on no matter how hard life gets. Because I felt like if I would have stayed down to 10, I would have just ended up giving up on life that night. So that moment there was more than just like a boxing match. You know, it was a life fight. But during that fight, I think around the 4th round, I busted my hand really bad in that fight. I didn't end up breaking a bone, but I ended up doing some damage to some tendons in the back of my hand where it was I think it was the 8th or 9th round. I was almost physically sick in my corner. My dad was like, just let me stop the fight, please. I said, Dad, this is one fight, man. I have got to make it to the end of this bell. You know, there was more to it. So yeah, it was a bad night. It was a good night for Verno, bad night for me. Yeah. But he, you know what? He was another just another classy guy. He even came in my locker room after the fight and he said, "You break your hand?" I said, I don't know if it's broke or not, but it's pretty hurt. He said, "Man, because you hit me with a right hook." And I think in the 4th round, he said, "It jaked me. And normally everybody knows you jump people when you do that." And he said, "You didn't jump me." And I thought something was wrong. He said, "I went back to my corner and told him his hand's broke. I'm getting them." So that's experience. He's been around, so he knows. Yeah.
Again, you know, you gather another 2 wins before getting another title shot. This time the WBA title, the date October the 2nd at the Madison Square Garden in New York. Again, though, it wouldn't be your night. A loss unanimously over 12 to the young and undefeated 23-0 Travis Sims. What do you remember of that night there? He was kind of a guy that, you know, was a lot fresher. You know, he was coming through at a different kind of time, I suppose.
Sure. I mean, I really felt going into that fight that I was going to beat him hands down. I really thought I was going to beat Travis Sims, just watching his fights and watching everything. And but he fought a good fight that night. He changed his tactic after I caught him with a clean shot in the 3rd round right at the bell, buckled him a little bit. And it was clean right hook. I think I cut him early in the fight too, right under his eye. The 2nd or 3rd round, I cut him. But then after I hit him with that right hook, he changed his tactic and started boxing a little more, and he just outboxed me. He fought a good fight too. He was a little stronger than I really thought he would be. He punched pretty decent. I mean, never hurt me or anything in the fight, but just picking off the shots that I did, I was surprised. I didn't think he was had that kind of pop in his punches.
Yeah, I wonder what ever really happened to him, because he didn't have the longest career really. You know, he seemed to just disappear.
And now he's in politics. He's a politician out in wherever it is he lives. I just spoke to him not too long ago.
Oh, great! Oh, excellent! I love these paths that some boxers take. It's so extraordinary.
Yeah, he's doing well.
Good to hear, man. Again, you bounced back with a win over Jose Spearman in an 8-rounder before jumping in with Kelly Pavlik up at middleweight. You were stopped for the first time in your career in the 6th round. But tell us about that night there. I mean, Pavlik was a big guy for middleweight, man.
Oh, he was huge. And, you know, I told my dad when we were in the weigh-ins, just looking at him, I said, you know what, I'm not going to box this guy. I'm going to walk out here and just try to get him. He said, no, we got to box him. I said, I'm not boxing. He's just big, and I'm not going to try to move around on him all night long. I'm just going to go get him. So, and then we just went out, and we had, you know, for the time that the fight went, it was a good fight. I had told my dad probably about two weeks before the fight, I'd actually got my ribs not bruised but detached in the gym sparring. So for 3 weeks, I had the tape like under my left breast. I'd have to hold it up and put tape under it in order to jump rope and be able to run. And I really couldn't spar or anything for the last couple of weeks. You know, and my dad was trying to tell me not to take the fight, but I felt Pavlik was young enough as far as skill wise, inexperienced enough that I could have beat him. But man, that guy could punch. Like, he was the hardest puncher I'd ever been in the ring with, for sure. That guy could punch like nobody's business. And he caught me in about the 4th or 5th round of the body shot, and it was like literally from where my ribs were already messed up. It was like somebody took a air hose but took it in reverse and just like sucked the life right out of it from that body shot. And then that was it. I just didn't recover.
Yeah, it was a good action fight while it lasted. But yeah, you're right. You know, Kelly Pavlik is. don't really hear his name mentioned amongst some of the best fighters of that kind of era. But he deserves to be right up there. He's a tremendous fighter. We've had him on this show previously. Oh, yeah. You bounced back again with another 2 wins, this time over Ted Muller and Clarence Taylor, and that's when the 2 back-to-back fights against Enrique Ornelas come around. Now, Enrique was a decent fighter. He, of course, went on to eventually challenge for a world title twice. But the first fight ends in a split decision victory for yourself in Philadelphia. The second fight ended in victory for Ornelas at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas due to a corner retirement after 5. I don't think I could find any footage on the second fight, but just from your perspective, tell us about those 2 fights there, the first and second, Bronco.
Well, the first fight was a really good fight. I was getting older at this point. He was young, and up and comer, and they brought me in to the fight in Philly to get beat, and I beat him on a close fight, and then they wanted a rematch out in Vegas, and so in that second fight, I told my dad, we were in the locker room before the fight, I said, I'm knocking him out this fight. I said, I remember how he fought last fight. He's open for a few things, and I went out first round. I dropped him pretty clean. And I mean, the way he fell, I didn't think he was getting up. Like he slumped. It wasn't like a buckle or a stagger. It was a slump. I thought he's done. I walked to the corner. I was kind of smiling when he got up, finished the round, and knocked him down again in the second round. And then he ended up breaking both of my eardrums. Is what happened. Both my eardrums got broken in that fight. I came back to the corner after was it the 5th or the 6th round where I got stopped in the corner. I don't recall exactly.
The 5th. It was the 5th. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he'd been down a couple of times. I had him pretty busted up. I mean, I thought I was controlling pretty good. My dad says, "Why are you laying on the rope?" I said, "Dad, I can't go to the center of the ring. I don't have any balance. I'm fighting off the ropes because both of my ears, I could feel the air and the whistling going in and out of both of my eardrums from wild swinging shots that he hit me with." And then he said, "Both your eardrums are broke." Doctor says, "Your eardrums are broke." They look in and they stopped fighting the corner. So that was it. I mean, there was really no, I really couldn't do anything after that. And then I remember Shane Mosley came over to the corner after the fight. He said, "Did you break your hands or something?" I said, "Both my eardrums are broke." He said, "I knew something wasn't right because you went from fighting one way to fighting a whole nother way." And I said, "Yeah, I was using the ropes to hold myself up."
Man, oh man.
It was crazy.
And 3 months later, you're back in the ring, this time against former world champion Raul Marquez. Now, we had Raul on last week's show, and he had a few things to say about that fight there. Tell us what happened from your point of view there. Obviously, it ended finally in a majority draw.
Right. Every time I see Raul, we go over this. So I tell him, "Raul, I won that fight hands down, man." And he says he won the fight. And so we just go back. But what happened was how it got to the draw point was when they were announcing the scores. Cause I honest to God, I thought I won the fight. I mean, there's fights I've lost where I can say, "Oh yeah, the guy beat me." But that fight there, I felt I won that fight. I thought it was tight. I thought it was a good fight, but I felt I won the fight. Well, he felt the same way. And then when they were announcing the scores, when they gave, I think it was the last score, my dad said, whoa. You can't even have that many points in a 10-round fight. Let me see them scorecards. So he goes over, he said, what is this? It was all scribble and this and that. And then the official said he made mistakes on the scorecards. They went through, correcting them, and it ended up coming out to be a draw. But it took 3 weeks for it to go through the whole process because we fought at a casino on an Indian reservation. They were under a whole different setup. The way that they do things, law, rules and regulations and all that. But they ended up overturning it and making it a draw. But it didn't do anything for me. I mean, so what? It was a draw. He went on to get a nicer fight and then got to fight Arthur Abraham after that for the world title. But like I told my dad, that wasn't a prize. Getting to fight Arthur Abraham for the middleweight title at that age, I said, wasn't a prize for me. 10 years earlier, I'd have been great with it. But at that age, it would have been like, it's not a big prize, quite honestly.
It's good to get your side of that because, he was, he had his side last week. which was interesting as well.
Yeah, we go back and forth about it. We went on Facebook back and forth about it. Every time I see him, we go back and forth about it. But it's all in good spirit. I like Raul Marquez, another classy guy. Nothing but good things to say about him.
Yeah, for sure. And you returned 9 months later and boxed former world champion Roman Karmazin, a 12-round unanimous decision loss for you, though, in Inglewood, California. What do you remember about that fight there, Bronco?
I don't remember too much about that fight, to be honest with you. It was just, I think the strangest thing about that whole fight to me was there was Stephen Bash was the guy's name. He was a promoter out of California, and he's the one that got me to come out there and fight the fight. And when we get out there, it's like the whole card, everything was like Russian promotion. Like, all the fighters were Russian and against, Americans, but it was like this whole thing. And I said, "Hey, Steve, am I going to get a fair shake out?" He said, "Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're with me. You're good. You're fine." So this is the best part. So the weigh-ins, Roman Karmazin walks in, and he starts questioning something, and he's speaking in Russian or whatever. I'm assuming that's the language. And so I figured the Russian promoter would have helped Karmazin out. And Stephen Bash goes over there and starts speaking to him, talking to him just as plain as I'm talking to you in his language. And they go and fill everything out. And then the night of the fight, we get in the ring, and across the ring is that promoter and Bash. And Roman Karmazin's got Stephen Bash promotions on his trunks, and the other guy's promotions on his trunks. And I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter what happens here. Yeah, we can see what we can. My dad wanted to leave the ring right then. He said, "Oh, they suckered us." That's what I remember about that fight.
Damn, man.
But it was a good fight. It was nothing. It wasn't no barn burner or anything like that. It was just a regular fight, nothing special.
And of course, after that, you boxed a further 7 times, winning 5 and losing 2. The final fight was May 30th, 2014, 6 years ago this week. You retire in the end, Bronco, with a record of 56 wins, 11 losses and a draw. One of the questions I wanted to ask was who was the hardest puncher you boxed. I thought you may say even perhaps Tony Harrison, but you said no, Kelly Pavlik for sure.
Oh, yeah, Kelly Pavlik, yeah. No comparison.
Yeah.
No comparison. Night and day, yeah.
And
Pavlik, yeah, his punches felt weird. They were so hard. I mean, it was like they vibrated your body almost like you were getting electrical shocks or something. It was crazy.
And I like to ask this question here. The best answer to this question is no, funny enough. But the question itself is, do you have any regrets about anything in your career, Bronco? Like I said, the best answer is no, but you may have some. If so, what are they?
I don't know that I do. Maybe, I guess my only regret would be is that I think I stayed around a little too long, but it was still in me. I didn't want to be the guy that retired and then said, yes, I was out a year and then want to come back. I did it all the way to the end. I did it, the way that I wanted to do it. But, my whole career, there was a fight in Philly. I cannot think of the guy's name right now. I think it was before the Glenwood Brown fight. I fought out in Philly, and I fought at the Blue Horizon. And I busted my left hand really bad
Richard Evans,
in that fight. Richard Evans, that's what it was. I busted my hand in that fight in the second round. And throughout my whole career from that time forward, it was never the same. And I just could never fight the way that I did up to that fight. It changed my whole career from that point forward, and things that I had to do when I was on the inside where I would really get off good left uppercuts that I never could. I just didn't know if I should have had a surgery, but I did therapy. I did all that, but it never was right. Even to this day, it flares up every once in a while. It just never was right. And I think that bothered me. I don't know. It's something I could have changed, but that was one thing that always bothered me because it changed my whole style of fighting from that point forward. Because I used to love to get inside and bang it out. And then I had to kind of change that once I busted my hand like that.
Yeah, because when you say there that, I was going to ask you this because your answer to the question was you perhaps stayed around a little bit too long, and my question was going to be, at what point do you feel like you were on the slide? But it doesn't really sound like you were too much on the slide because obviously it was an injury with your hand. You're not necessarily, I don't know, too old at that point because it wasn't that long after you'd obviously lost your world title at that stage. So Was there a period of time where you kind of felt yourself on the slide, on the way down, or was it really after you busted your hand, that was really it kind of thing?
Well, I still won some good fights and still worked my way into some major fights after busting my hand, but it was just, it was like I had to do it in a different way, and it wasn't the same for me. I was always getting, you know, that hand injury was always happening. When I fought Karmazin, it hurt me so bad shadow boxing that it just hurt the shadow box. It was a tendon. It wasn't like a bone. That's what made it worse, I think. And then, you know, I tell you what, is when you know it's time to retire, here's when you know it's time to retire as a fighter. When you start even thinking about it, which I thought about it at the age of 35, and I stayed around until 43. But when you think about it, and when there's days when you can find excuses as to, well, I don't need to go to the gym today, I can double up tomorrow. Or, you know, when you start missing, you know, your days at the gym and all that kind of stuff, you know, it's time to, when the fire's not there, when you just are not willing to, you know, you hear fighters say, man, I was willing to die in that ring. And there was a mindset where you really were, when you were on top of your game, because it was all about winning at any cost. And when you lose that passion, that desire, that willingness to get out of bed early, that willingness to put in them 2 to 3 day workouts, when that's done, it's over. You know, and people don't, it can happen at any age, you know, but I think you have to recognize it and realize it, but usually you won't accept it.
Yeah, no, that's honest of you to say so. I think, who was it who said the quote about it's very difficult to wake up in the morning when we're in silk pajamas? Who was that again? Was that, oh boy, I think that was...
Oh my gosh, I forgot who said.
May have been.
Was it? It might have been. I don't recall. I think you might be right, though.
Yeah, if I've got that wrong, I'll definitely delete that out of this interview anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to ask you this as well, Bronco. Was there anyone you would have liked to get the chance to fight but didn't get the chance to? Obviously, you mentioned that Sugar Ray had made the Fernando Vargas fight. Is that the fight, or was there another fight you wish you'd like to have?
I would have loved to, definitely. I would have loved to mix it up with Fernando Vargas. And I tell you what, if he was still around, I would have loved to mix it up with Terry Norris, because he was still around when I was the number 2 in the WBC and number 1 in the WBO when we went the WBO route. I mean, just to, at that time, actually, you know, Terry was kind of maybe a little on the downslide, and you know, I was the young lion coming up. It would have just been great to climb into the ring with a guy like a Terry Norris, who's definitely a Hall of Famer and just an all-time junior middleweight great in the history of the sport. And of course, I would have loved Fernando Vargas too.
And you said who your the biggest puncher was that you faced. Who do you feel was the best fighter that you faced?
Oh, it would have had to been Winky Wright. Yeah. I mean, all around, he had everything. He had good defense, take a great shot, great stamina, beautiful jab. You know, I tell people you could never appreciate his jab unless you're on the end of it. It just doesn't do it justice watching it on TV, because his jab is dynamite.
I want to ask you this as well. Obviously, there's that fantastic photo of you with the gloves on, and the gloves are on fire. How did that come about, man? That's one of the best pictures. That's one of my personal favorite pictures in boxing, period.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This guy around here who's a professional photographer, we wanted to get some publicity photos made. We went out to his house, and he put a piece of tape on the glove, some super glue, and lit it. And my dad was laying at my feet. And as soon as the pictures were taken, my dad jumped up and blew it out so it didn't ruin the gloves. That's a true story.
Oh, that's amazing, man. And just coming down to the final couple questions, really, Bronco. We've gone through everything pretty speedily, I'd like to think. I want to ask you, what are you up to these days? Obviously, it's been a while now since you retired. What are you up to these days? What gets you out of bed? What keeps you busy?
Well, there's a couple of things that I do. I'm what's called a West District supervisor for the Monroe County Road Commission. So I supervise it would be 7 townships and all the different road work and different things that go on in those townships. I do real estate been to real estate for a couple of years, and I've been on the boxing commission for the state of Michigan since when I retired in 2014. I got appointed that year I believe it was September or August of that year. I got appointed by the governor, and I've been on it for the last 6 years. And my term isn't up till 2022. I'm on my second term right now.
Okay, interesting stuff. And I'd like to ask this question to everyone that we speak to from overseas. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, Bronco, so put your thinking cap on. Favourite UK fighter? Any era, who comes to mind? Favourite UK fighter?
You are, man. You've had some. You guys have had some good ones. But when I'm thinking UK, man, what's your middleweight? The guy that, I liked Ricky Hatton.
You shared a bill with
definitely
Ricky
liked
Hatton, didn't you, once?
Yeah. I liked Ricky Hatton. Would Prince Nassim Hamed, would he be considered UK fighter or no?
We claim that.
I liked
him
him
for sure.
Yeah. I liked him, but I liked the middleweight, the undefeated guy.
Joe Calzaghe.
Oh yeah, Joe Calzaghe, man. It's hard to go against that guy.
Yeah.
I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
He was a good fighter. And then you had Nigel Benn, and then you had Eubank. I mean, you had some really good fighters. I liked a whole bunch of guys from over that way. I don't know who I would say would be my favorite. If I had to pick one, I guess I'd probably just go with I'd probably go with Hatton because I actually know him. So I'd probably go with Hatton.
Yeah, very popular choices, very popular names. We get different ones all the time when I ask that. But yeah, all those guys are very popular for sure. A fun fact I want to just throw in as well, just before we end it. On the 20th of May 1994, when you won the Michigan State welterweight title, it's never been fought for since. So you're still the reigning champion. Not quite sure if you're aware, but you're still the Michigan State welterweight champion, my friend.
Well, I definitely have to go around as the longest reigning one.
For sure.
26 years and counting.
And just finally, Bronco, before we let you go, my friend, if you've got any closing words just to our listeners, I'm guessing you probably don't get many chances to interact, especially with your fans from this side of the pond. If you've got any message at all you want to send before I let you go, now's the time to do so.
Oh, well, first I just want to just say thank you for taking the time to allow me to be interviewed. It's always still very humbling to me. I appreciate it. And I'm thankful for all the support and any of the fans overseas. And when I was fighting, I used to get letters from overseas quite a bit, and I really appreciate all of you. So just thank you so much, and just I hope that everybody stays safe and healthy.
Well said, my friend, well said. Listen, Bronco, it's been an absolute pleasure discussing your career this week. It really has. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with the future, and I hope we can speak again real soon.
Hey, me too. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 242 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. The former IBF Junior-Middleweight World Champion Carlos Molina has been with me for the duration of the show. So all the best to him with his own show this Saturday. The only live boxing event with names that we've actually heard of in the world during this whole thing. So please tune into that if you get the chance. And also, of course, a massive thank you to our sole guest on this week's podcast, the former WBO Junior-Middleweight World Champion Bronco McKart. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks for sticking with us during this pandemic. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.